I have some pages in your course text that we're going to look at. I'm going to be sharing them on screen with you. And then we have some role-playing videos to look at later, just to get an illustration of what good interview techniques are. Those of you who may be looking for new jobs in the future, looking to advance your career in some way, or some of you may just be making lateral move, right? But how's it going? I haven't done a temperature check since the early weeks of the semester, and our time is winding down. We have maybe 5 weeks left, I think, 4 or 5 weeks. Next week, I'll be able to give you information about your final exam in terms of when it is and where it'll be held. I don't want to assume that you're going to have a virtual final because this is a virtual class. I'm going to find out from the BIF's office what they would prefer and give you information about that next class. Any questions or comments? Any concerns? Things that we need to cover before the end of the lesson so that I can incorporate it into the syllabus? Speak up if you have any particular concerns. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to our lesson plan for tonight.
Right. I just had a quick question about the group assignments.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a specific time frame? Like, is that like long?
I think it's 8 minutes is what I said on the syllabus. I want to be clear though. So let me pull up the syllabus. I don't want to give you the wrong information. Eight to 10 minute video right at the top. I sent this syllabus to you at the very beginning. If you didn't get it, let me know. I can resend it. There've been some changes since I sent it by email. There's sort of been something that you got from me after our first class. I sent this out, but an 8 to 10 minute video. Now, that may seem long, right? And maybe for some people it is, but if you are demonstrating the skills required by the assignment, and I sent a rubric last week, you'll find that the time will go quickly. Okay, Chanel?
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All righty, so resumes. And we're also going to look at some samples. I want to pull up your course text. I have an electronic version of the course text that I am going to be sharing with you. Okay, so as I said, we're going to talk about preparing a resume and cover letter tonight, and then how to conduct yourself on an interview, things that we want to keep in mind. I want to start by asking a question. Is there anyone working in HR in the class? Anyone who has responsibility for hiring? Or if not, have you sat in on a bad interview or performed poorly on an interview yourself? I've sat in on some bad interviews. I was a part of a committee to hire new professors in my department recently, well, last year, and we had some interesting interviews. It is a very uncomfortable position to be in. I'm sure for the person being interviewed and for the people doing the interview. Has anyone in the class, is anyone willing to share if they've had a bad interview experience or sat in on a bad interview? Anyone? I remember years ago as a college student, I wanted a summer job and I had traveled home for summer break, as most college students do. And the thought of spending the summer broke and relying on my parents for money was not appealing. So I said, okay, let me find something to do. And so a friend had told me that a local bank was hiring. So before I even got home, I said, all right, let me go onto their page, find out all that I can about how to apply. So I applied, and surprise, surprise, they called me. What I did not know was that I would have to do a practical interview. So they come in, they ask you questions, and I don't know what position I was applying for. I thought I would be hired as like maybe a teller or something. And I didn't intend to tell them that I only wanted a temporary job, right? Which was dishonest of me, I know. And they called me back for a position that I don't even think I had in mind. And a part of it was typing. How many words per minute can you type? So I did this typing test. And when I was in high school, and I went to high school at a time when you learned to type, you got a word per minute. And so when I left high school, my word per minute was like 30 something, 40 words. And so I put that on my application form that I could type 40 words per minute. Now, this is like 4 years since high school. I'm not getting the typing practice that I used to get. I failed that exam so poorly. There was a lady walking around the room, looking over our shoulders as we typed. And you know, any serious typist knows you're not supposed to watch your fingers. So I'm typing away. When I looked at the screen, pure gibberish. Needless to say, I did not get that job. I was beyond rusty with typing, but I left feeling as though I had misrepresented myself in some way. I presented well on paper, so they called me, but at the practical part of the interview, I did not represent myself well, and that stuck with me for a while. I felt, you know, that I'd let myself down. So we're going to talk about what to do on an interview, how to avoid that feeling. So the first thing I want to discuss, though, is what is a resume? Why is it important? How do we use it? It is a document that represents your education, your qualifications, your skills, your employment history, and your experience as it relates to a job that you're applying for. It needs to be clear, it needs to be concise, and it needs to be in a format that potential employers can read, interpret, and understand, because it serves such an important purpose. It, as I said, outlines your skills and qualifications. It shows a connection between your professional profile and the problem or challenge that the potential employer wants to fill. So anytime a job is advertised, it is done with the intent to solve a particular problem or to meet a need within an organization. And so your resume bridges that gap. between the need, if it's done well, and if you're appropriate for the position, the need that the company wants to fill, and your skills and qualifications. Oftentimes, when we are prompted to submit a resume, it is because we've looked at an advertisement detailing job descriptions and duties required by a particular post, right? It serves another purpose. It should get you an interview. It needs to so clearly demonstrate that you have the skills and qualifications and the professional background that the organization calls you for an interview. So you need to give serious attention to updating your resume or preparing your resume, and that is going to be your next assignment, to work on your resume. I've taught this class and had students contact me afterward, even after we've done this assignment, to say, look at my resume, what do you think? How can I polish this? And that's fine, I'm glad to help in that way. But oftentimes, the job of updating your resume is an ongoing one. It's not something that is static. It's not a static document at all. As you grow and as your skills develop, so should your resume. And that's sometimes difficult to balance with the mandate that your resume shouldn't really be longer than 1 page. So we're going to talk about where that mandate fits and how it gels with your need or your desire to represent yourself as fully as possible as someone qualified for this job, right? So what do you think potential employers want in a resume? What do they want to see? And I've emphasized this so many times. First of all, it needs to be clear and accurate, right? And it needs to be up to date. I just made this point. As you grow, your resume should grow, or at least the skills and qualifications represented in your resume should expand. It speaks for you in your absence. So you are not there. You send this document ahead of you. You want it to represent you well. And that means paying attention to some of the finer points like grammar, mechanical errors. You don't want them to raise questions about your level of education, your attention to detail in your absence, because you're not there in person to answer these questions. Hopefully you get the interview and can do that later. But before you even arrive, be aware that the resume is a representation of you. If it is riddled with errors, if it is not well put together, then any potential employer is going to be concerned about the kind of work you are going to produce. If we hire this person, will they be a good fit? Will they be the best fit for this position? I want to share with you from your course text a list of the top 10 pet peeves potential employers or recruiters listed when they look at a resume. What are some of the things that make a candidate an absolute no-no for them? Let me share that on screen with you now, page 166. Let me make this bigger. It's not having the effect of making it bigger. All right, so hopefully you can see this a little better. Let's too fast. All right, I totally lost my place. 1 second, let's do that again. There we go. Is this large enough for you to see? I'm looking at a figure in your course text. It's from page 166. And it lists the top 10 pet peeves for recruiters. At the very top, you wouldn't expect it to be at the top, but at the very top, spelling errors, typos, and poor grammar. What do you think that would be number one, as opposed to someone not being fit for the job, or resumes that are too long, longer than 2 pages. Why do you think spelling errors, typos, and poor grammar would be at the very top of the list?
Maybe because communication is the primary thing that's needed. And if you're not a good speller or you have poor grammar, your communication may be off.
That's a part of communication, is very important in business. We tend to think we only need to be good writers and good at English in an English class. No, it is the one course, I think English and math, that you need no matter what course you're in, no matter what profession, you're going to need to communicate well. I would say more so than even math, you need to be a good communicator. So yes, communication is vital. But I think there's another reason it just ticks recruiters off. It suggests a level of carelessness, and it's easily avoidable. Like, you have so many tools today to help with spelling errors, to help with typos, to help with poor grammar. Applications like Grammarly, Word will also do spell check for you. When your document is sent to a potential employer and it is riddled with errors, it suggests you didn't take this seriously enough to make sure this was on point. And these kinds of things are avoidable, easily avoidable, with some attention to detail and time and effort on the person preparing the documents part. And so if we look at the other pet peeves, too duty-oriented, missing dates or inaccurate dates, missing contact information or inaccurate or unprofessional email addresses. We talked about that a couple classes ago. Poor formatting, long resumes, long paragraphs, unqualified candidates. We can kind of explain the others away. A long resume, for instance, or something too duty-oriented might be explained as the person being really eager to represent themselves well and wanting to put everything that they bring to this position out there. Long paragraphs, no bulleted points, things like readability, but they require more finesse from you, greater level of skill than spelling and grammar. Those are basic. Those are things we learn in grammar school, right? Primary school, from a young age, we're taught your subjects and verbs should agree. You're taught how to spell words. And so people have very little tolerance for it as we get older, right? We tend to think, no, you should be past this era at this point. And so it is number one. I was surprised to see it at the very top, but we could imagine why, right? You're applying for a position and they want to make sure that you are the best possible candidate, right? So long resumes greater than 2 pages. So the rule is generally 1 page, no more than 2. We'll talk about what those pages should contain and how firm this rule really is. Okay, are you surprised to see anything else on this list? Are you surprised? All right, so I'm going to stop that share. And I want to now look at the sample resume included in your course text. And we'll see what it looks like, what components it contains, and then we're going to look at some other sample resumes, because there is a popular format for resumes, but there are ways we can tweak it too, right? We don't have to always use reverse chronological order. There are other formats that we can look at. So there's a good sample on page 167 that I want to share with you. Now, this is several pages long. This is a reverse chronological resume. I'm going to give you a minute or two just to look at what's on screen. Can everyone see? Let me see if I can make it even bigger. Without cutting off parts of it. Okay, so it's at 175%. And then I'm going to scroll down. This computer screen is so sensitive. I think I'm going to use the touchscreen feature rather than the mouse. There we go. I have better control doing that. Okay. We see the name of the person, right? This format, and I've used this format before. In fact, this is probably the format of my resume right now. You have the contact information off to the left margin, and I'm using the word resume. In other settings, like I would put together a CV, not necessarily a resume, but my CV follows this format. And then it begins with education. Now, what is the rule? We're going to talk about this in a bit. How far back should your education go? What should you include? Is it college, high school, primary school, employment? Notice that this is user-friendly. You have subheadings in bold. You have the most recent teaching experience first, right? And the position in bold to draw the reader's eye to it. You want to make your document user-friendly in that way. This is a one-page resume. Notice the use of bulleted points. I thought this was a multiple page sample. We're going to look at that later. And the reason you don't have long paragraphs is because, one, it's going to make your resume far longer than it needs to be. And also it's going to impact the readability of your document, right? This is not colorful, it's not fancy, it's not unprofessional, right? This person is applying for a job, not trying to get an art award. So your resume doesn't need to be fancy and colorful and engaging in that way. You want to represent yourself in a professional way. You start with your education, most relevant. And then include the education that would fit the position being applied for. This is a student graduating. So you'll notice that there is no extensive work history, right? And that's okay. Sometimes that works against you, but it depends on the kind of position you're applying for. So have a look at this, and we have scales at the bottom. Instead of other, I would have used the heading skills at the very bottom instead of other. Other suggests this is incidental, all right? When really the information here is quite important in establishing an overall picture of the person applying for the job, all right? Notice that verb tense is appropriate to what is being described. So for past positions, past tense, processed, maintained, produced, and action verbs are used, right? And it's a short phrase, catchy, not long, and drawn out. And then we have the education listed. Again, short phrases, not long, drawn out sentences. Okay, so that is one example of a resume. It doesn't include an objective. You notice that. And we're going to talk about whether you really need an objective, whether that has to be in your resume. We're going to look at the basic parts of a resume first. So we're going to look at figure 8 on page 170 of your booklet. And as we go through, I want to discuss these components with you, or the basic parts of a resume. So figure 8, page 170. You should all be able to see my screen now. Basic resume content, or parts of a resume. What do recruiters expect to see? What do they need to make a determination about your suitability for a job? Can everyone hear me? I'm getting an internet unstable message. Can everyone hear me? Let me stop my video just to give it time to catch itself. Meeting controls. Yeah. All right, so we look at this sample on page 170 of your text. And if it gives you a better view, please feel free to pull up the actual sample on your device from your course text. You don't have to look at my screen. It may be a little bit smaller for you. I'm going to slide this up just a little bit and over to give you a better view. There we go. So the basic components of a resume. You need your contact information, of course, your education and your work experience. How do they reach you? What training do you have for the job? Either through a college or trade school, and what experience do you have for this job, right? So work experience. Your contact information, you first are going to provide your name, and you need your full legal name. That's very important. Other information, so you might want to include your mailing address, right? And you need an email address too, because that's generally how people communicate. You will probably get a message by email before you get something through the mail, right? And of course, a phone number. You may get a phone number even before a phone call, even before you get an email, right? You may get a phone call to say, I'm going to send this email to you, right? You want to make it very easy for a potential employer to reach you. Now, do you need an objective? Many modern resumes don't have to include an objective, or don't include an objective. Is that the best practice though? The content of the objective for a lot of people seems too obvious. It's the job you're applying for, that's clear. People know, they put the position in the paper, right? Your cover letter and the body of your resume outlines your skills. So a lot of people think the objective is repetitive. You don't really need that information. It's not absolutely 100% necessary, but the objective can be very useful, especially if you do it well. It can grab the attention of the recruiter and encourage him or her to read your resume. A well-crafted objective grabs the recruiter's attention and encourages him or her to keep reading. So I wouldn't just leave it out or think it's unimportant. So it's a good idea to include it, especially if you are a recent graduate and you don't have a whole lot of work experience, or if you're changing careers. And the connection between your work experience and the position you're applying for is not obvious. An objective can help, right? A clear objective, a well-crafted objective can help. So let's say your resume shows that you have a history of work in a particular field, right? But you are applying for a job in a new field. Your objective can rationalize and provide an explanation for why you are applying for this new position. People will ask questions or think. I remember being on the hiring committee and thinking, or having the question discussed amongst the 8 of us on that committee, why was this person out of work for the last 4 years or 5 years? Why are they looking to make this move? You had people from all parts of the world coming to the Bahamas. A well-crafted objective can help to answer certain questions, certain gaps in either skills or career path. A well-crafted objective can help to fill those gaps. If you use it, your objective should be customized. Don't have something standard or broad or vague, right? It should clarify exactly how you're going to develop this organization, help it when you arrive, when they hire you. How are you going to help it achieve its goals? It doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be wordy or drawn out, but it has to have impact, right? So some sample objectives. Listen to this as a sample. So imagine you're applying for a job at a car dealership, and your objective says at the very top, you want to contribute to increase sales and productivity as a member of the sales team at Multi-Auto. What is that objective doing? One, it's forward thinking, it's confident. You are already envisioning yourself in the position, and it outlines how you can help the company to increase sales and productivity. And as I said, it's forward thinking as a member of the sales team at Multi-Auto. Short, sweet, and to the point. Or imagine that you are applying for a banking job, right? And you have an objective that reads, to use my banking experience and superior interpersonal and communication skills in the role of relationship manager, to maintain existing client relationships, to attract new clients, and to increase revenue. That's an excellent objective. So what are you doing in a statement like that? One, you're highlighting your experience. I'm using my banking experience. You're highlighting your skills. And my excellent or superior interpersonal and communication skills. You highlight the role that you want. And you are goal-oriented. How am I going to help this organization? I'm going to maintain existing client relationships, bring in or attract new clients, and increase revenue. That is an example of a good objective. It's not long or drawn out. It's not as simple as the first one, but each has the same objective. A focus on what you bring to the position, your suitability, and also a focus on how you can help this organization to grow, whether it's increased revenue, whether it's bringing in more business, potential clients, maintaining relationships, whatever the position requires of you, your objective should illustrate a knowledge of that position and also bridge the gap between you, your skills, and it. All right. The next thing you want to include is your education. You list your education in reverse chronological order. What does that mean? That means your most recent degree comes first. Now, recent degree is applicable, right? Not everyone has gone to college, that's fine. But your most recent education first. And let's be real, if some people have only completed primary school, then, or some high school, that is what their resume will show, right? If they've only, if they've completed college, then that is what their resume will show. If you have done postgraduate work, then your resume will show your college and your postgraduate degree, right? If you have completed college and high school, that is what your resume will show. You don't need to go back to primary school in that case, right? So the more education and experience you have, you list the most recent, most applicable, right? If appropriate, you want to give your GPA, your grade point average. You list the school, the degree, and if applicable, your grade point average. Some jobs, depending on what you're applying for, will ask to see your transcript, right? A lot of positions have the luxury of, a lot of people applying for different positions have the luxury of just presenting their skills, qualifications, their degree, right? In other positions, you actually have to include your transcript showing the courses you've taken, the grade you've achieved, right? What positions do you think might have that stipulation? Think about it. When is it not enough to just send in a copy of a degree, but you have to do more? You have to show that you have excelled in this particular area. When do you think that's important? They want to see the actual transcript. You can't think of anything?
When they're actually considering you?
Right, when you're applying for a job, I was saying, a lot of times when it comes to education, on your resume, all you're required to do, if you have a college degree, you just send in a copy of the degree, all right? If you've excelled, you may want to include your GPA and certificates, awards. If your resume doesn't have more education than a high school diploma in particular, you become more expansive in the information you provide, right? You give more information to establish yourself as an excellent student at high school, particularly if you've not completed college education, if you don't have a degree. I'm saying that is the norm, right? You're not usually asked for anything beyond a degree, except in some positions. You have to get an actual copy of your college transcript showing the courses you've taken, showing GPA, showing where you've excelled in particular positions. Can you think of any field where people work and they have to be that descriptive and that detailed in the kinds of academic qualifications and academic record they provide?
Doctor?
I actually don't know if doctors have to do that. Maybe. You want to, and we like to think when we walk into a room, this doctor was the smartest person. We need to know you were the smartest person in medical school. That's what we hope, right?
A
That's
lawyer?
not always the case. Teachers, sorry?
A lawyer?
I don't even think so. I don't know. You have to, but now here's the thing with doctors and lawyers. You have to go through so much postgraduate work to get the position. For instance, they don't just get a 4-year degree and then move into the position. You have to then be called to the bar. That involves more study, and the same is true for doctors, right? And so I don't know that they have to actually produce a transcript, I'm not sure. But what they do have to do is after they finish their first degree, they then go and a lot of them go on to specialize. Before that, though, they do their rounds and they do their internship. And so there is a lot of study involved. But teachers, they actually want to see that transcript. What grades do you want to teach English? Okay, send us your transcript. Let's see what kind of English grades you got. And a lot of times that makes the final decision, right? Is this person hired or not? And so you have to submit additional information, particularly if you're entering the field of education. You have to produce a very detailed academic record, right? To show that you've excelled. And not just you want to be a warm body in the classroom, right? Now, I'm not saying that a transcript full of C's won't get you hired. In some cases, it may not, but I do know that for teachers, you're required to bring in really detailed academic records, get that transcript from the school, and show what courses you excelled in. It's also how you are assigned to courses as well, right? It's also how you're assigned to teach. Yeah, you have a particular major, but for instance, to give you an example of my career field, rhetoric and composition, literature, linguistics, there are many fields. And so the courses that you've taken determines, and your aptitude in those courses determines what you then go on to teach in the classroom or what courses you're assigned, right? Okay, but we digress a little. I was just sharing because I find it so interesting how hiring is done for different professions, how training is handled, right, or regarded for different professions. So I'm going to repeat what I said about education. You list your education in reverse chronological order. Your most recent degree, if you have a degree, that comes first. Your school, the award or degree that you got, your grade point average to demonstrate your success in your chosen field, and it may also be a good idea to highlight coursework that directly relates to the position. Again, that depends on the level of education, right, and the position you're applying for. That was the last question I asked. And then work experience. Let me move this up a little bit. So your work experience, you list your employment history, including the positions, the companies, the locations, the dates, the duties, and the skills you acquired on these jobs, also in reverse chronological order. So remember what that means. That means most recent first. This is the format, the reverse chronological format is preferred by more than 90% of recruiters. It is the most popular, but we're going to look at several other formats. You may use short descriptive sentences or bullet points. Emphasis on short if you choose to go the sentence route, but don't use both. So don't mix it up. If you have worked for 4 different companies, don't list your duties and responsibilities for one company using bullet points and then switch to short sentences for the second company. Don't do that. Choose one format throughout. Be deliberate in how you highlight your work experience as well, right? When you apply for a role in business, for example, you emphasize responsibilities relevant. So do you have experience with preparing budgets, Are you good at teamwork? Are you good at supervision? Did you have experience or some supervisory capacity? Did you serve in some supervisory capacity before that? Are you exceptional at customer service? Don't exaggerate your skills, but highlight those that you think will make you most suitable for the job. Don't do what I did on that job interview, right? Master typist, and then didn't get the position. If you're applying for a position as a bank teller, do you have experience with cash? Do you have particular experience? Sorry. Thought my phone was on silent. Do you have particular experience with reconciliation? Again, a bank teller is responsible for interacting with customers. So are you exceptional at customer service? Emphasize the skills that make you best fit for the job. And then your references. So some recruiters, some HR professionals feel like the objective, which we talked about earlier, the resume, the references, sorry, at the bottom of your resume is kind of outdated. You don't necessarily have to do that. In many cases, it's enough just to prepare a list of references that you can provide if you're asked for it, right? If you choose to include references in your resume, make sure these are people who are going to speak highly of you. And that seems basic and obvious, right? But don't assume. And don't assume that the potential employer is not going to reach out either. They will. So make sure you choose people who will talk you up and speak very highly of you. And also be assured when you put those references, that reference list together, the recruiter will reach out to those people. What is the rule about length? So try not to make it longer than 1 page. Try, but don't shortchange yourself. Don't cut out skills and experience most relevant to the position. Valuable experience that could help you just to keep your resume to 1 page, right? If you need to go to a 2nd page, go to a 2nd page. Represent your years of work, represent how you were best suited for this position, and worry about the page length after. Now, 3 and 4 pages, no, you're gonna need to cut that down. Most people aren't gonna look at that. But if your resume is 2 pages and it is compact and it represents you well, the 2 pages is really not a big deal, right? Don't cut out good experience, valuable experience, just to keep it to 2 pages. And then your skills and experiences. So language, computer skills, special skills. Some people list extracurricular activities. If you find that to be relevant, it can help you seem well-rounded, right? But don't forget to list these. So you are really good with Excel and you have particular aptitude with the computer or some computer training courses and experience, you list it on your resume, okay? All right, so don't forget the most important parts, your contact information, your full legal name, your address. Don't forget email address and phone number. People will probably use those more than anything to reach out to you. Your education in reverse chronological order, work experience next in reverse chronological order. Your references, put together a list. They don't have to appear in the resume, but have it ready in case you get that call, and make sure you chose people who will speak well of you. And then your skills and experience. What makes you best fit for the job, okay? So as I said earlier, this is the most reverse chronological order is the most popular, but we're gonna look at some different kinds of resumes and discuss the pros and cons of each. We're gonna look at the reverse chronological again, just to give you another example of that. A functional resume, a combination resume, a targeted resume. I'm gonna stop this share and I have some samples an email that I'm gonna pull up. All right. So the first one is reverse chronological. We've seen this. This is the one that's multiple pages. Well, actually, no, it's really small. So we've condensed it to one. Let me stop this share. I thought I had downloaded it. There we go. I'm going to make this bigger. So this person uses a different format, right? We have the name across the top. That's fine too. All right. It needs to definitely be included. So whether you include it in the left margin, you have the line down the side, that's in the left margin, like the first example we looked at, or this. But look at this format. It is clean, it is readable, it contains a lot of information, but it's well organized. And so we don't feel like it's difficult to read, right? This includes, instead of an objective, a summary of the person or professional profile. That is a good strategy as well. And then we have experience from most recent to the oldest. So from 2017 to 2012. So what is the advantage of this? And he chose to include education before skills before education. That's fine too, all right? But remember, he wants to emphasize what makes him fit for the position. And this person has a lot of sales experience. And so he wants to emphasize the skills related to sales that make him fit for the position. His education comes after because it's a general degree in business, right? But it's the work experience that he wants to sell him, the work experience and the skills. And he has a lot of it that's specific to the position. So he highlights the experience and the skills, and then the education, because his degree is more general, it comes after, right? What is the benefit of this? So it demonstrates a consistent work history, this approach, right? It puts your work experience out there, it highlights that, so that's a benefit. It is easy to read, and it puts the most relevant information in the eye of the recruiter early, and so it's preferred. So when you use this format, you're giving what most HR professionals want, so that's a benefit. But there are some disadvantages of using this reverse chronological order. So if you have had a whole lot of work experience, diverse work experience, so your previous job titles are substantially different from the position you're applying for, then this format may make it look like you're not suitable for the job that you're applying for, all right? And if you don't have a consistent work history, so if you've been unemployed for periods, this kind of format will emphasize that because the dates are clearly indicated, right? along with the employers. So if you have gaps in employment, this format is going to show those gaps. And if you've been stagnant too, if you have not advanced in a particular position, it's going to show as well in this reverse chronological format. So just to review, this can be good because it emphasizes your skills and experience. It is easy to read. You have most recent first. If you have a consistent work history, it's good. If you have gaps in employment, this format can emphasize that. So it may not be the best, right? You may want to use a different format for your resume. So we're gonna look at a functional resume. Let me stop this share and pull up another example. All right, so let's enlarge this. So this is a functional resume. What does that even mean? Another name for a functional resume is a competency-based resume. This focuses on skills and experience rather than work history. I'm going to repeat that. This competency-based resume focuses on skills and experience instead of work history. We have the contact information at the top. That's very important. But we don't begin with employment and employment history with the dates, right? It demonstrates the skills that can be linked to the job the person is applying for. It has your most important work experience. And so that is a benefit. The problem though, is people tend to associate this or use this format when they don't have a consistent employment history. They want to emphasize their skills because there are employment gaps. Let's say a mother took 5 to 10 years off, right? To raise her kids. And so questions might be asked, well, what were you doing in the last 5 years? You don't necessarily want to emphasize that you've been out of work for a while, right? So this format might be good. It's not commonly used, but it can be quite useful, right? Notice there are no dates, again, because there is no consistent work history or recent work history. So you may want to use a competency-based resume in that case. You're taking a long break from your career. This might be good. And this person is quite skilled and qualified, all right? Okay, and the benefit of this is it gives you the opportunity to use very detailed descriptions. Excuse me, sorry. It gives you the opportunity to be very detailed as you list your skills, because essentially that's all you're including in this competency-based resume. All right, so we're gonna look at a combination, i.e. a combination of chronological and functional resumes. All right, So this isn't a great objective, by the way. Everything else about it is good. The format to me looks a little bit cluttered, but he was trying to make this fit one page, right? And this stipulation about the one page can create that. So remember, resist that pressure. Make it readable, even if it's 2 pages. Be concerned about that. So we have, in this combination resume, a blend of reverse chronological and functional. So this format, and it's a little bit blurry as I tried to enhance it. Sorry, this format highlights the skills you have, the most relevant skills. And it provides a reverse chronological work history, right? At the bottom. This is useful if you have a diverse employment history. So you have quite a few different kinds of positions and skills. So this person has worked as a teacher, this person has worked as a carpenter, a sports bike specialist, a package expediter, a bank associate, quite a diverse work history. The benefit of this kind of resume, though, is it allows for an emphasis on the skills and training, and it also includes the work history, right? The drawback of using this is it's not very popular. We talked about the most popular format, and it's a lot longer. It looks cluttered, right? It's like you're trying to include quite a bit of information, and it can be a little bit repetitive too. So you have to have some skill in using this format. But what he wants to do, what Mr. Collingsworth wants to do, because he's worked in so many different jobs, is to provide or to highlight those skills. He needs to provide a professional summary because his work history is so diverse. In this case, then, I would not have included the objective. Just begin with the summary. And my recommendation would also have been to take this to another page. But otherwise, it's a good representation of the person, right? Don't feel like you have to crowd it into one page. Okay, and the last sample I want to look at is a targeted resume. So a targeted resume is something more custom, right? It highlights your particular experience and skills, but it is a format that points out to the reader how you and your experience really match this job. So it begins with a job target, special events coordinator, and you highlight your skills. You begin with your skills first, your achievements, and then education and work experience. So why? Why is this useful? If you are in a position where, again, you have a degree that doesn't necessarily match the position you're applying for, you don't want to necessarily emphasize that first. You want to focus on your capabilities and achievements and connect them to the position. This person has training in speech communications, right? Which I guess the argument could be made that, that's important no matter what position you're in. But something like this requires a careful analysis of the job announcement. And so you want to look for those keywords and phrases and plug them into your resume. Pull out keywords and phrases from the job description. If they fit, remember, you're not exaggerating, right, or misrepresenting yourself. But you want recruiters to see right away how you are connected and you're able to meet their organization's need. So this is a custom document. This would take some time and careful study of the job description, but it allows you, once you've done that, it allows you to highlight your achievements and capabilities for the job target. Okay, so those are the 4 samples. So we looked at the most popular, which is reverse chronological. We also looked at a functional resume, which is also called a competency-based resume. The combination of the two, reverse chronological and functional, and then a targeted resume, right? That is targeted to a particular position and you emphasize the skills that make you fit for that position, not so much your education. So looking at those resumes raises another question that people often ask. Students have asked me, do I need a cover letter? Is that out of fashion or out of date? The cover letter gives the potential employee their first impression of you. It is going to engage their interest. It's going to encourage them to read your resume, just like the objective, right? It is a sales letter. You're selling yourself and your experience. So the answer to that is yes. Include a cover letter. Don't think it's out of date. Don't think it's old-fashioned. Don't think it's unnecessary. Absolutely include a cover letter. It is typical to include a cover letter with your resume, and before you start writing it, do some research on the company. Why do you think you want to research the company? Before you put this cover letter together, why should you look up some information about the company and the job you want? You need to do some research. Why? I said it a few minutes ago. If you're able to do that, if you have some information about the company, it's going to help you when you get the interview later, but it's also going to help you in your cover letter. It gives you the opportunity to say things like, I learned that, or I was impressed to find out that your company's sales have grown by 20% in the last 2 years, last year, and I'm eager to help continue to grow sales or to bring X skills to the position that will increase sales even more. What you're doing is demonstrating, I've done my homework, I've done my research, I know something about this company, and I'm confident enough, right? So make sure you research the position, what they're looking for, and make sure that you include these details in your cover letter. I'm not saying you provide an entire treatise on the company, 3-4 pages, no, but key details that help to sell you and show your enthusiasm for the job. When possible, make sure you address your cover letter to an actual person. Don't begin with to whom it may concern. Call the company, find out the appropriate recipient's name. If you can't get the person's name, include their job title. Do not write a cover letter that begins to whom it may concern or dear sir, madam, right? That suggests lazy, I didn't do my research, right? Again, I'm going to say it because it's so important. Look at the job description and the skills required, and use phrases from the job description in your cover letter to emphasize why you're the right person for the job. And make sure your cover letter includes a very strong opening. Why do you find this job exciting? Why do you want the position? Why are you confident you're right for this position? That research that you did earlier, use that research to show that you know what the company does. You know what its mission is, you know what its core strategies are, and emphasize how you are going to add value to this organization. And then when you're ready to close your cover letter, ask for a job interview. But make sure you're flexible. Be flexible regarding the time and the location of the meeting. So you include your contact information. Don't think, oh, they can get it from my resume. Include your contact information so that the potential employer can reach you. And then be proactive and say, you're going to call to follow up. We're going to talk about how many times to call before the end of the night, right? But be proactive. Ask for the interview, say you'll call to follow up. A standard closing, like sincerely, that's fine, that's adequate. Keep your cover letter short. The rule of thumb is, like the resume, try to keep it under 1 page, right? More so than the resume even, because your resume may go into 2 pages, like we said. Your cover letter, though, try to keep that to 1 page. And then customize it. Don't send a generic cover letter. Customize it for each position you're applying for. And then make sure, like you did with the resume, make sure it's free of grammar errors and punctuation errors. Remember, they misrepresent you or represent you poorly. There is a sample on page 182 of your course text. There's a sample cover letter. I'm going to share that with you, just so we get an idea of what is good in terms of a cover letter. Let me move this over. Not too much. Okay. So we have a sample cover letter. Use appropriate formatting for the letter. Provide information very early about who you are and why you're writing. All right, first paragraph. Clear topic sentence. This is why English is important. No matter what you do or where you go, you're going to draw on your communication skills. All right, your writing skills. Briefly describe education. Remember, your resume tells the full story. But briefly describe your education and experience that make you fit for the job. And then, why are you particularly interested in this company? Sound excited about it, all right? And then you give practical information at the bottom. You can reach me by doing X, calling X, emailing X. These are my dates. Notice how broad this availability is. All right, you might also say something like, I am available at your convenience, all right? But I'm gonna call you next week to follow up and do that. In the meantime, you may call me or email me. This is not too pushy, that I'm gonna email you to, or call you to follow up is not pushy at all. You want the job, and that comes across in your proactiveness in this final paragraph, all right? And then you sign your letter. So please don't think this is old-fashioned. You don't have to do it. You absolutely should include a cover letter. And choose from your resume those key components that are going to make you particularly fit for the job. All right, don't think, oh, they could read the resume. They want this information. Yeah, but they're gonna read the cover letter first and then decide they want to read your resume. All right, so your resume is good, your cover letter is on point, they call you, they want to give you the interview. What do you do to sell yourself on this interview? How do you represent yourself in a way that makes you the best person for this job? No doubt, in the recruiter's mind. This is where your potential employer is going to get a feel for you, right, in person. They determine there whether or not you are fit for this organization, right? And they're also going to be looking to verify the accuracy of the information that you included in your cover letter and in your resume. The interview is good for the recruiter, but it's also good for you, right? It's important for you. This is where you are going to learn more about the organization you are applying to. And you can also determine if this is someplace you want to work, you really want to work. Is this the right fit for me? So don't think the interview is all about the recruiter. The interview also helps you, right? Or can be useful for you. So we're going to watch a short video that is going to give some interview tips, right? How to make a good impression on an interview. And then after that, we're going to watch some role playing, right? Some good and bad interviews and talk about what could have been done better or what went wrong. So I'm going to stop this share of this cover letter. And I need to open this video link. Okay. This was a video I found targeted for Harvard Business Review. As I think about what might be useful in class, I try to go to the most reputable sources. And so this is a good source. Let me go into full screen mode. Sorry. Okay. For whatever reason, it's not letting me get into full screen mode. Ooh. All right, it's not allowing me to go to full screen mode. It's saying it's unavailable. So we'll watch the video from this small window. Sorry. Okay, so let's listen to some of the tips that she gives, and then we'll apply this to the role play videos we're gonna watch.
Hi, Harvard Business Review. My name is Tori Dunlap. I'm the founder of her.
Let me turn my speakers up even higher. These get really loud.
Workforce 100K and the host of the Financial Feminist podcast. And today I'm here with tips and tricks on how to succeed in your next job interview. Now, job interviews can be super daunting, but your prep work happens before you even walk in the door. My first tip is to take a look at the job description and go line by line, thinking of statistics, narratives, or other stories about how you're qualified. You know that section of the job description where they have all of those bullets of requirements like must be a self-starter, must be organized. You're going to prep for the interview by thinking of particular stories from previous experience that show that you are organized, you are a self-starter. Anytime you can tie your experience to specific outcomes is a great thing. So I was organized with this project and it made the company $50,000. It's a great example of how you can use a specific statistic, a specific story to show that you're qualified for this particular job. One of my friends did this in the past and it worked out really well for her. She was trying to move from being a hostess at a restaurant into recruiting. And she didn't have any recruiting experience on paper, but she could cite particular instances where she had the skills needed to be a recruiter. So again, things like organized, self-starter, was able to work well with people. She could use stories or particular instances where she exemplified those skills in the food service industry and could transition those into working as a recruiter. So she got the job. Most hiring managers are going to ask you questions based on this job description. So if you prep with the job description, you already have your answers. You know what to say. Number 2, you're going to get asked about either your current salary or your salary expectations. And this always trips people up. It's the hardest job interview question, though. What are your salary requirements? And I'm going to tell you exactly how to answer it. The first question, what is your current salary? It's actually a question that's illegal in over 20 states. I'm based in Washington State. I know it's illegal here, and you can do a quick Google search. It's a question that's used by folks to get you for as cheap as possible. So obviously we want to avoid answering that question. If it is illegal in your state, you can tell them. It's actually illegal to answer that question here in the state of X, but happy to talk about my qualifications. And you can say the same thing if it unfortunately isn't illegal in your state. That's not something I'm comfortable answering, but I'm happy to talk about my qualifications for this role. The what are your salary expectations or what are your salary requirements question is one that's more common. And it typically is the company's way of trying to see if their budget aligns with yours. But they already know your budget, so ask. You can say something like, I actually don't understand the full scope of the role at this point in the process to accurately price myself, but I would love to know your budget. When I've been on job interviews, that has worked. 9 times out of 10, they will tell you their budget, and then you can say if that aligns with you or not. The reason we don't want to give a number first in either scenario is we don't want them having power in that way. I've seen many a client go into an interview, give a number first, and end up quoting a number that's $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 under what the job was actually going to pay, and we don't want you losing out on that money. My third and final tip, always ask questions at the end of a job interview. There is nothing worse than when the interviewer turns the table and says, do you have any questions for me? And the candidate says no. It shows you're not prepared, it shows you're not interested, and frankly, job interviews are as much for you as they are for the company. You are trying to figure out if this organization, if this particular boss, if this career move is something that's actually going to be beneficial for you. So by denying yourself a chance to get more information, it's not only a huge red flag to the company, but you want this information. You want to see if this company is going to be a good fit for you. Here are some of my favorite questions to ask. How do you measure success, particularly for this position? This is a great way to get a plan together for your first 30, 60, 90 days. You know exactly what you need to succeed in order to stand out and in order to eventually get a raise or get promoted. You will also then know if these metrics are realistic. I've been on job interviews where the description of the job was very different than what my boss or potential boss was actually expecting me to do. Do you have to stay late every night? Do you have to make the company millions and millions of dollars, right? Having an outline of what these expectations are is going to be your best toolkit for success. My second favorite question, how do you help your team grow professionally? This is a great opportunity to see if this company is committed to developing you as an employee. Plenty of companies offer what they call education stipends. They'll give you maybe a couple $1,000s to take a course or attend a conference. These are great ways, of course, to not only benefit the company, but also benefit you. You can take these skills into your career if you don't stay at this position forever. And the third and final question, what is the salary and performance review process? You want to know that there is a process. One of my previous jobs did not have a process whatsoever, which meant having to constantly advocate for myself and constantly ask for feedback. We want to know that the structure's in place for you to get good and consistent feedback. We don't want you having to email your boss every other day and ask if you're doing a good job. It's also going to be more likely that you get a raise or get promotions if that salary review process is already in place. Ultimately, I want to remind you again, job interviews are, yes, to figure out if you are equipped to do a job and to do it well. You're also, though, on a job interview to figure out if this position is right for you. Don't forget that.
Okay. So that was a short interview, and she tackled some touchy issues, right? We think, should I ask them how much they're willing to pay for this position? Should I answer them if they ask me how much I make on my current position? How do I get around those kinds of uncomfortable questions? And what questions should I ask on this interview? One of the worst things you can do in going to an interview is not asking anything at the end of the interview. All right? It's bad, like coming late. It's bad, like being improperly dressed. It's bad, like not being able to represent yourself well or articulate your skills. Sitting there at the end of the interview and being asked, do you have any questions for us? No, I don't. It's just as bad. And so you want to think of questions. And she said, good questions to ask. What professional development opportunities are there? Or how do you support employees' professional growth and development on this job? It suggests, one, you're concerned about your own development and how you can complement the company in that way through developing yourself, right? And if you're asked about salary, ask what's their budget. Don't undersell yourself. Don't say, oh, I do it for 50,000 when their budget is 65 or 70, because they will pay you $50,000. They will offer you $50,000. So pass the question back to them in a respectful way. Can I ask what is the budget for this position? And they will tell you. I hesitate to think that any recruiter is going to lie, right? They will honestly tell you what the budget is for this position. And if you're in a position, I had a friend who recently did a job interview and he was asked for his desired salary. And he said it quite boldly and confidently. And they said to him, well, no, that's a little bit more than we had budgeted for this position. The range is from X to X. And then you have the information that you need to make a decision. Am I willing to work for that? Right? Don't think if you say, oh, I want to make $80,000 and their budget is only 60. Don't think you're not going to be offered the job. They will offer you, if you're a good candidate, they will offer it to you based on their budget. So don't be afraid to say what your desired salary is. Be reasonable. Do some research first. What is the range for this position? All right? It can't be a position that pays $30,000 a year and you walk in saying, I want to make 90. You're going to get the look. Like, okay, you didn't do your research, right? So be reasonable, do your research, find out the range, and then speak up when you're asked, right? Almost anyone working anywhere will tell you, you negotiate on the way in. That's where you get your money, on the way in. After that, performance and incremental raises. It's going to be really hard to get a big leap or jump in salary once you've been hired. So be open, all right? At the interview. Don't be arrogant and try to get triple, all right? Or request triple. That's not going to happen anyway, but be reasonable and speak up. Okay, so we're going to look at some interview role playing. Some examples of bad interviews first. Sorry, I have too many things open on my screen. I need to close some of these. So we're gonna watch 2 examples and then talk about them. Did they go well? If not, why not?
Hi, Barbara.
Am I sharing my sound? Can you hear that as well? Can you hear that? Can you hear the video?
Yes.
Hi. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in for the interview today.
Thanks. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, great. So I've had a chance to take a look at your resume, and we're really impressed with the experiences you've had in logistics.
Yeah, well, I've worked in lots of places since my kids have started school.
Okay. So would you be interested in upgrading any of the skills you currently have as they relate to programs in our job ad?
Well, with 3 kids, there's never enough time, but I could manage some work if I get the work. I could try to take weekend courses when the kids are with their father. I know that my work in AS 400 is still current, but I could likely update what I've done in ERP applications.
Okay, yeah, you certainly sound busy. Do you find that working with others comes easily to you, or do you prefer to work on your own?
Most often I'm better on my own because I can set my own pace and try to meet deadlines that way without relying on others who sometimes don't make the effort.
Okay. So would you say that you've taken the lead on team projects in the past? And if so, could you provide a few examples?
I've just worked in small offices in the past, so mostly I've just been given tasks and done them on my own without having to bother working with others. It's just faster that way.
Okay. So Barbara, those are all the main questions that we have for you today. Are there any questions that I can help answer?
Well, I'm always worried about things like benefits. I'm guessing you have a dental plan. Does it cover braces? My son is going to need them in the next year or so.
So we definitely have a comprehensive benefits package specifically related to our dental coverage. The only thing is that our orthodontics coverage is only for full-time staff members.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Can I work from home? My youngest is still in daycare, and I could save money this way if I worked from home, say, 1 day a week.
Okay, so one of your children is still in preschool?
Well, she'll be in school next year.
Okay. So I can definitely see, Barbara, that you're very interested in this role and our company. One thing I'm noticing in your resume here is that we don't have a list of references. Is that something you'd be able to provide?
I don't know if my most recent company has anyone in HR who can help, but the company I worked with before I had children, I'm still in touch with them.
Okay, perfect. Any information you can provide on those recent placements would be great and would certainly be helpful for us. Any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, it's nice to meet you, Barbara. Thanks for coming in today. I'll be in touch in the next week or so once we finish up all of our interviews.
Right. Well, thanks. I'd like to hear soon.
Okay. Thanks, Barbara.
Okay, so this interview was very polite, right? How do you think this went? What did Barbara do wrong? Many things. It started from she came in. What did she do wrong? Hello? What happened to my class?
She had bad body posture. She seemed not to be concerned. She just wanted to get the job. She didn't show much attention as to what the company does. Or
So she didn't do a lot of research. First of all, you come in and you shake the recruiter's hand. So she just sits in the chair and she does it on exit as well. Right? It's bad manners. And her posture is bad. Do you think she's appropriately dressed?
No, she's casually dressed.
A little bit casual with the sweater, right? Look at how the recruiter is dressed. And she does something else as well. She seems to be focused on her kids, and that's great as a mother. But from the very beginning, before she's even hired, it seems as though her having to raise her kids is going to interfere with the job. And you know, we could argue all day about how fair that is for women to have to make this choice or not make this choice. The reality is the reality, right? No employer wants to know that you will miss a whole lot of work because you have to raise your kids, even if that is your reality. You don't want that to come through so clearly in the job interview, right? She wants to know if she could work at home so she could save money. What else does she ask? My child needs braces. Do you have a plan? What kinds of questions does she ask at the end? Speaking of the braces, what do they suggest about her? She asks about healthcare, and what else does she ask about?
Working remotely.
Working remotely. And so she gives the impression that she's only concerned about how this job can benefit her, not how can she benefit. Even when asked, are you willing to upgrade? I guess I could do it. Yeah, I could do it in this way. Even when asked, you have good resumes? Yeah, I could, good references? Yeah, I could reach out. I'm still in contact with them. I don't know the person in HR at my last job. Really? Why don't you know the person in HR? Or find out, right? What will they say about you? So she does several things that show bad form. And as I said, the recruiter is polite. They will likely be in touch with her, but probably to tell her she didn't get the job, right? Another thing, and I think the next video that we watch is going to show it. I was sitting in on an interview for a family business recently, and it was basically a cashiering position. We ultimately did not hire the young lady, but I will tell you that, and you think these things seem so obvious, nobody would do that on a job interview. People have to know that that's bad. So she showed up, she was really late, like about an hour late, but she called and she explained that she had some challenges with collecting her kids from school. And so when she finally showed up, she apologized for being late. But without knowing us, and I don't even know if this is appropriate when you know somebody, she sat there for about 15 minutes and talked about her ex-husband and how he gives her such a hard time and he doesn't help with the kids. And so it all falls on her. And she was late because he was supposed to go get the daughter and then he called at the last minute. She needs to go get the daughter and he's just lashing out at her because it's not working out. And I'm sitting there listening to her like, shut up, shut up, shut up, don't say anymore. One, because you're revealing something very, very, very personal. And two, it is in no way our business. So do not overshare on an interview. I would even caution you against oversharing on the job. But again, we form relationships with people. Do not overshare. This represents you. Do you want strangers to know the ins and outs of your relationship as you're going through divorce or you just recently divorced, right? And so we're going to look at another interview. Okay. And this is from a medical university in New Jersey.
Hi, Miss Smith. Oh, she's finally here. Great. Send her in, please. Morning. Good morning. Well, good morning. My name is Miss Owen. Thank you for joining me today for the interview. Did you find the place okay? Well, the traffic was unbelievable. And the parking here, I do not understand how you guys can park in here. So I'm so sorry for being a little late. Well, thank you very much for coming. I see that you have applied for our office assistant position, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this position. The position is in our Allied Health Professions School. It has over 35 different academic programs, and they serve a variety of students as well as faculty across many different counties in New Jersey. This position would pretty much focus on the student interaction as well as dealing with the basic needs of our faculty and students. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Well, I have two beautiful children. I have a daughter that's 2 years old, and I have a son that he's 8. So I was very glad when you guys called me for this interview because I've been looking for a very long time. Okay, well, great. I see from your resume that you have extensive experience working in an office setting. Do you have any experience working with students? Well, you see, I didn't really research your company as much, but I do work well with others. Tell me a little about your strengths and your weaknesses. Well, a lot of people say that I work well with others. Everyone says that. And I'm always at work, every single day. I always make it here, every day. I mean, when it comes down to my weakness, I would say that just sometimes, I'm saying all the time, but sometimes I am a little late just because I'm getting the kids ready for school in the morning, you know how that is. Mm-hmm. And I would say my computer skills, I'm lacking a little bit more knowledge on that. I should, I need a little more training when it comes down to that. But other than that, I'm fine. So what would your previous employer say about you? I mean, we had our differences, but at the end of the day, we got along, But I don't think he would say anything bad about me. I don't think so. All right, well, do you have any questions for me at this time? I think I'm fine. No, you know what? I do have a question in regards to my vacation time, my sick time, and my pay. Will you be able to answer that for me? Well, those are questions that Human Resources handle, and they handle that later on down the line. Okay. Any other questions for me? Not really. I mean, will you guys be calling me back anytime soon, or? Yes, we'll be in touch. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, sorry, let me stop with. Okay, so that video shows a little bit more of a reaction from the person doing the interview. In each video, we saw the interviewee doing the same thing, coming in and ignoring what is polite, which is to shake the person's hand, right? That's something that seems small, but can't be ignored. And Leslie noticed something that I didn't even notice. She was chewing gum. She was chewing gum. And in each case, you will see that the questions are all about how I can benefit. So I need to know my pay. I need to know about vacation time. And there are ways to ask those questions, but make sure you phrase them. Can I ask, what is the budget for this position? And it cannot be the only thing you ask, right? Couch it in questions that are designed to draw out or provide more information about the company, right? Clarity on the organization, clarity on the role, and then ask the budget. Don't come straight up and ask about your benefits, right? And each employee wanted to know about benefits. And she says, I'm really glad you called me because I've been looking for such a long time. And if you're asked to tell the recruiter about yourself, and this is going to sound really, really bad from someone who doesn't have any kids, because I think as mothers, or maybe even fathers too, the first thing we think is, oh, I'm a mother or a father. We identify ourselves in that role. Talk about your skills. Talk about things that make you a great employee. And then if you want to, you discuss something more personal, like I am also a mother, but don't emphasize that. And then when you're asked questions, like she was asked to talk about her strengths, and according to her strength is, I show up at work every day. That's the bare minimum. That can't be a strength, that's a requirement. And I'm sure the job requires more than you just being a warm body. They just need someone to sit at a desk, and that person is you, no. Right? So a strength is not showing up every day. And for goodness sake, do not be late. Do not be late. Under very dire circumstances, a minute or two, if you're 20 minutes late to the interview, don't come. It's not going to go well. You're not going to get the job, right? Call and cancel. Because she shows up late to the interview and then reveals she has a problem with time. Oh, I didn't come late every day, but I have a problem with time. And as Bahamians, this is one of the biggest areas in which we fall down. Time. We're always running on Bahamian time, which for us is probably 5 or 10 minutes after we need to be where we're going. So we're gonna look at a good example. So that's our interview with Barbara. Let's see what she did to get it right, or how it could have gone better.
Hi, you must be Barbara.
Hi, nice to meet you.
You as well. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, we've been really looking forward to meeting you. We've taken a good look at your resume, and we're really impressed with your experiences in logistics.
Yes, I've had experience working with similar companies, some of them in the area, but all of them involved with logistics.
Excellent. And would you be interested in upgrading the skills you currently have as they relate to the programs mentioned in our job ad?
Well, I chose to stay at home and raise my 3 children until they were of school age, but I'd look forward to any upgrading that's available, and I could even fit in some online courses on the weekends.
Sure.
I know that my work in AS400 is still current, but I look forward to updating what I've done in ERP applications.
Okay, that's great, Barbara. Do you find that working with others comes easily to you, or do you prefer to work on your own?
Because I've always worked with smaller companies, I've often been pretty much on my own, but I'd welcome the chance to be a part of a team approach, as I think I have plenty of experience that others would find valuable.
Perfect. And would you say that you've taken the lead on team projects in the past? And if so, could you provide us with a few examples?
Okay, so what's different? She's dressed differently. Her language and posture are different. She sounds and looks more confident. And she's representing herself better. So we're going to look at the next stage. Work experience.
While I haven't had the opportunity to work with teams in logistics, I've often worked with management to resolve problems with distribution and to allocate work among our employees in order to maintain peak productivity.
Okay, that's great. So those are the main questions that we have for you, but do you have any questions for us, Barbara?
I understand that this is a contract position, but are there chances that it could evolve into full-time work? I'm ready to return to the workforce and take on long-term work. My youngest is in JK, but we've arranged to cover all of our childcare needs.
Perfect. Well, it's difficult for me to say right now for sure, but I can definitely see how interested you are in this position, even as a contract role that will hopefully evolve into a permanent position. Are there any other questions that I can help answer?
No, not at the moment, but I will definitely follow up by email if I think of anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. You can email me at any time. The only other thing I'm noticing here is that I don't have a list of references on your resume. Do you have any contacts we could get in touch with from previous placements?
I'd be happy to provide you with references. With the number of similar placements I've had and the realization that you'd be receiving a lot of resumes, I wanted to be as concise as possible.
Sure, I understand. We'll certainly be in touch with some of your most recent employers then.
I've been in touch with my former employers and they said they'd be happy to hear from you.
Okay, perfect. And if you do have any other information that would be helpful for us to know about those most recent placements, please send it along to me, and that would be great.
Thank you so much for the chance to meet with you. I've really enjoyed it.
Great. My pleasure, Barbara. We'll be in touch in the next few days after we finished our interviews.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, so she doesn't oversell herself. She still talks about her limitations. I haven't had much teamwork experience, but I have experience in this area. I have been doing this, more so working with management instead of one-on-one. So she doesn't misrepresent herself or lie in any way. But she still represents herself well on the interview, right? Okay, good. So we looked at those key points. Another important thing to remember, and I can't emphasize this enough, is that your interview, when do you think your interview is over? Rather than saying it, let me ask the question. When do you think your interview is over? Is it when you shake the recruiter's hand and you walk out the door?
Once they call you to say if you get the job or not.
Well, it ends before that, right? Your interview is over, the actual interview, when you are in your car on your way home. That is when your interview is over. So don't show your frustration in the elevator. If you didn't think it went well, don't show your frustration in the elevator on your way out of the building. Don't get too relaxed if you're waiting in the lobby, say you're waiting on a ride. Start talking loudly on the phone. As long as you are on company premises, conduct yourself professionally, right? And you don't want to hang around the people's place too long, right? You shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be there an hour after your interview, of course not. But your interview is over when you are on your way home. All right, always remember that. Now, after the interview, things that you should do. You should send a thank you email. So write a thank you email and send it as soon as possible. Make sure it's well thought out. You want to make it specific to the conversation that you had with the person, and take that opportunity to advance yourself as a good candidate and to reiterate your enthusiasm for the job. Thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with you. I enjoyed discussing X position, right, and learning X about the company. Please keep me abreast of any decision that will be made regarding the position. I am really enthusiastic and ready to join this company or to become a member of this organization. Thank the person, but send a thank you email. That's something that we might overlook or think is not important. It absolutely is. There's a sample thank you email in your booklet that I want us to look at. Let me get out of this. It's on page 196. Class subject. Remember how important that is. We have specifics from the conversation, specifics from the interview, and it ends by reiterating how much you would like the job and how excited you are about the position. I hope to hear from you soon. Right, that's very important. Don't think that this is unnecessary or not important. It again reminds them, and it's good form, right? Now, the big question. You had the interview. It's been 2 weeks. You haven't heard from them. Should you follow up? If you follow up, how many times should you follow up? There are things you could do afterward. And you have to get a feel for the people in the interview as well, right? Before you take these steps. So the things you could do, ask to connect on LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is a very professional platform. Ask to make that connection on LinkedIn, and then continue to follow up until they tell you they hired someone else. I'll say that again. Continue to follow up until they tell you they hired someone else. Now, does that mean you should nag them? No. But reach out every so often. If they are doing the responsible thing, the decent thing, they will notify you that the position has been filled. Sadly, that's often done because you call to find out, right? But continue to reach out. And if they do tell you they hired someone else, send a gracious thank you note and ask to be considered. All of this is still representing yourself, right? And you don't do it to the person on the phone. You want to make sure that it goes to the person. Your thank you note goes to the person who interviewed you, the person that you have been following up with. Sometimes you call and ask about the position, and it's an assistant that you speak to who can tell you the position has been filled, right? Still send a follow-up. There's a sample follow-up on the next page of your course text. So have a look at the sample follow-up. It's not pushy. It strikes the right note. And it suggests this person has another job. I prefer to work with this company, but I'm being pressured. Now that, is a little bit controversial. Should you tell them? But be honest. If you have another position and you prefer to work in this other job, you could say that. I'm considering multiple job offers. Do you think that a decision will be reached by X time? I'm writing to follow up. Not too pushy. You don't make yourself sound desperate, all right? But if you are in demand and you've gotten multiple job offers, you want to be in the best position, right, to make a decision about the job offer that works for you. We tend to think of these things as bad form, or because we don't do them, we assume that they're not done. They are done. And all of it is a part of representing yourself well for a position. And that extends to whether you got the position or not, especially because we live in a small society, right? And you meet people in various settings, and you don't know what the future holds. You may apply for another job with this institution, right? And so make sure that you handle yourself professionally throughout the entire process. All right, so those are the notes from your course text. Make sure that you read through the samples and review what we discussed tonight. A part of your final is also going to ask about interview techniques and strategies. I'm going to put together a list of chapters and course content that you need to review for the final. And as I said, next week, I'm going to give you more specifics about the date, okay? All right, the last thing that I want to do is to review the grammar that I told you we'd discuss, but rather than overload you with information, I'm going to review the content with you and then ask you to complete it, right, in time for next class. So as I said, for those of you that came in late, we're gonna continue our focus on grammar. I'm gonna send this to you at the end of the class. And I don't think I didn't send you the video on meetings. As I said, I have uploaded it to my YouTube page. I think you said Mr. Pratt didn't send it. I need to remember to send you that short lecture on meetings on the evening I was unable to attend class. I pre-recorded a lecture. All right, so avoiding common grammar errors, semicolons and colons. So we looked at the comma several weeks ago. And that is a basic punctuation mark. We all know that a comma indicates a pause. And when we're speaking, we know where it feels natural to pause. And so in writing, it is almost just as natural to determine where we need a comma. These two punctuation marks, we tend to mix up. Where does the semicolon go? What is its use? And where does the colon go? What is its use? There are rules for using a semicolon. The simplest way to remember the semicolon is, and this is the punctuation mark that looks like a comma and has a period on top. And that's a perfect representation for this punctuation mark because of the function that it serves, right? The function that it serves is it creates a stronger pause than a comma, and it does not create a strong pause as a full stop. So it is a blend of a comma and a full stop, and that's exactly how we make it, right? A semicolon looks like this. You have the comma and the full stop on top. So remember what I said. It's not as short a pause as a comma, not as long a pause as a full stop, or in terms of what it does in a sentence, the effect. So what does it do? You use it where you would use a period, but where the period has the effect of coming to a full stop, a semicolon connects ideas. I'll say that again, a semicolon connects ideas. You'd use it where you would a period, but it connects ideas. And so you don't just put a semicolon between two sentences throughout your essay because you just don't want to put a full stop. No, you use it where the two sentences are connected in terms of their meaning. They have to be short, so you don't join two long sentences with a semicolon, and you don't join two unconnected sentences with a semicolon. They're short, and one idea is connected to the idea expressed in the next sentence, right? Okay, so let's look at some examples. Where I use the semicolon, I could have used the full stop, but the effect would be two short sentences and would be very choppy. Some people use Tide laundry detergent. If I didn't use the semicolon, it would be full stop. Others prefer game. These two are connected. I'm drawing a comparison. I have two independent clauses, i.e. two sentences, i.e. each part expresses a complete thought. Some people use Tide laundry detergent, that's one sentence, a complete thought. Others prefer game, a complete thought. I don't have a full subject here. Others is the subject of the sentence, but my reference to understand others is in this first sentence. So I connect them because the meanings are connected. The others referenced here refers to the some people I mentioned here, right? So that's what I mean when I say short sentences where the ideas are connected, all right? We also use a semicolon before however, when what follows is a complete sentence, right? I would have joined you at the party, comma, however, semicolon, sorry, however, comma, my parents did not give me permission to attend. This is a very distinct use of the semicolon. In order for it to be correct here, this has to be a complete sentence. If we have however used as a coordinating conjunction, right, instead of a conjunctive adverb, then we don't use the semicolon. And that sounds like I just spoke French. So what do I mean? When we have however as a conjunction in the sentence and not as an adverb, we don't use the semicolon. Let me think of an example where we wouldn't use the semicolon before however. Okay. So this is the example. This example on screen shows what I mean when I say, however, is not functioning in the same way it does in this sentence. This is not a complete sentence, right? This is, so we have however used as an adverb here to join these two sentences, right? You can is not a sentence. And so however would be separated by a series of comma, not a semicolon, okay? So remember, we use the semicolon in place of a period. What follows is a sentence, what comes before is a sentence. And we put a comma after however anyway. And so this comma appears here, okay? So don't think whenever you see however in a sentence, you need a semicolon before and a comma after. No, it depends on whether however is used to join two independent clauses. And remember what an independent clause is. It means it's a sentence. It's independent. It expresses a complete thought or idea, right? Then you use it when there is a list, right? When you're announcing items or series in a list. So there are basically two ways to access the property. This is a colon. This example introduces very nicely uses of the colon, which we're going to look at next. But there are so many commas in this sentence and such mixed punctuation that for clarity here, I use the semicolon, right, to separate my clauses. There are basically two ways to access the property. This semicolon comes between the two ways. Take the highway, follow the map and road signs, which is long and tedious. And this is here, right? Refers to this first method, right? Or fly by helicopter, method 2. So we have a colon, we're going to talk about why in a minute. And then we have a comma here, but to separate the two ways, to separate the two ideas, we have a semicolon. And then a series of commas in the sentence otherwise. So what are the three ways to use the semicolon? And remember what I said, you think of it as stronger than a comma, not so strong a pause as a full stop, right? They each mean stop. A comma means stop. A full stop means stop, stop. A comma is a brief pause. So the semicolon is a kind of blend between the two. You use it to join two short sentences where the ideas are connected, right? You use it before however, right? When it functions as a conjunctive adverb, right? You have a sentence before and you have a sentence following. And then you use it when you have a series of clauses punctuated by commas, right? it divides the thought here 2 ways. And we have the colon because we're about to make an announcement. Way 1, sentence 1. Way 2, sentence 2. We have 2 sentences, connected ideas. So we don't put the full stop. We wouldn't start a sentence with or anyway. We don't put the full stop here. We use the semicolon. Now, the colon is a lot easier to identify and to determine when we should use it, but we don't use it often, right? When you're about to announce an idea that you want to emphasize, you use the colon. So that's why it's used here. We're emphasizing what comes next, right? When you're in dialogue, say you're reading a book, you'll see this, right? Or a play, you'll see this often with the colon. And 2 people speaking. And then when you're making a list, a long list, right? That is the definition of a list. A list is not 1 or 2 things, right? A list is several things combined, and you separate it by a colon, and then the list follows, okay? So bear in mind, the semicolon functions like a period, but 2 short sentences, not long sentences, and ideas have to connect. And the colon is basically to give emphasis, whether it's you're emphasizing instructions, you're emphasizing or separating the speaker from the word spoken, or you're emphasizing items in a list. The colon is generally meant to provide or give emphasis, okay? All right, so I'm gonna send this to you. This focus on grammar. I've sent the rules of the comma to you already. And I want you to review it because a part of your final is going to be to discuss, well, to correct grammar errors. So I'm gonna send you a practice exercise that you use to reinforce what we just talked about. And there are also practice exercises in your book in chapter 4 of your course text. So if you want even more reinforcement, okay? All right, so that is all the information that I have for you tonight. Oh, let me look at your syllabus because you have your last assignment, your last 5-point assignment. Do I still have the syllabus open? Sure do. All right, so it is week 9. And your assignment, and you're going to be really excited about it, really excited. Your assignment is to update your resume. Update your resume and send it to me, not by March 16th. You know that you have until Sunday by 11:59 p.m. to submit your updated resume to me. So think of how practical this assignment is going to be and how helpful. Those of you who needed to upgrade your resume or update your resume and haven't, this is your opportunity. So I will look to receive those from you this week, Sunday by 11:59. I'm going to send the instructions. And that will be your last assignment in class. The next one, and they're starting in next week, the videos. So 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and then 5 on the 5th. Presentation 5, sorry, on the 12th. Your groups, at the bottom of your syllabus, you see your video and context assignments. Remember, these videos are worth 15% of your grade. So the classwork you've done, 25%, the video 15%, and your final 60%. All right, I'm going to repeat the groups for the benefit of those students who may have been absent when I first gave this information. Chanel and Ricardo, group 1. Leslie and Alexis, group 2. Courtney and Shanique, group 3. Danielle and Ellen, group 4. Dimitri and Crystal, group 5. Byron was not placed in a group. Byron, I think you were absent when we did this. I can assign you to a group now. See me after class, or we could talk about group 3 has the most space for a third person. It allows for a third person. So Byron, join group 3 with Courtney and Shanique. And those people in groups, I hope you've shared your contacts with your group members, because this assignment is planned outside of class, okay? All right, so that is it for tonight. Someone sent a message in the chat. That is it. I will see you next week. Please stay behind if you have questions for me. Otherwise, have a good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay.
Good evening.
Hi. You have a question?
That's saying good evening.
Oh, okay. Have a good one.
Sorry, I had stepped away. You call me Miss Hicks? Huh, Danielle?
Oh, attendance? No.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to take it now. I know that you were here. Everyone was present
Okay.
tonight.